Today's video will be discussing fatal accidents, particularly those involving semi-autonomous driver assistance features. In keeping with our editorial policy and out of respect for the deceased and their families, we will not be showing any images on screen of any of the incidents in question. 11 years ago, Elon Musk confirmed that Tesla was looking into building cars with autonomous or semi-autonomous driving features akin to the autopilots found in modern airplanes, and confirmed Tesla was in talks with Google Inc. about adding Google's autonomous driving features to Tesla vehicles. And since then, Tesla has promised a future where vehicles would, one day, be capable of driving themselves without any human input. And, as has become something of a meme online, Tesla CEO Elon Musk has been promising us said self-driving functionality would be just around the corner for more than a decade, with Tesla replacing its original term autopilot with full self-driving beta, and most recently, full self-driving supervised. Those who have used any of Tesla's semi-autonomous Level 2 driver assistance features for any length of time will know that, at times, they can enter into the uncanny valley of driving proficiency, creating the illusion that they are as good, if not better, than a human behind the wheel. But just as equally, those same systems can behave like a learner driver on their second lesson at a moment's notice. And that fact is true of all currently available Level 2 and higher driver assistance systems, both automaker-installed, ones like Blue Cruise, Super Cruise and Pilot Assist, to name just three, and aftermarket development systems like Comma AI or any of its derivatives. But Tesla, for the most part, has been the one to lean in to the most of its self-driving and autopilot claims, drumming up a lot of interest and a lot of custom from people who are eager to put down sometimes tens of thousands of dollars when buying a new Tesla, with the hope that one day their cars will drive them wherever they'd like to go. That, unfortunately, has led to some pretty high-profile cases of Teslas being involved in fatal collisions in which their drivers were killed. The first occurred in 2016, when Tesla owner and company fan Joshua Brown was killed when his Tesla Model S sedan collided with a semi-trailer truck in Florida. And since then, there have been numerous cases of Teslas operating in semi-autonomous mode being involved in accidents in which the driver was sadly killed. Sometimes, as was the case of a double fatality in 2019 in California, collisions take place involving Teslas being driven under some form of semi-autonomous operation in which the driver survives, but in which other people, be they in another car, a motorcycle, a bicycle, or on foot, were killed. In the case I just quoted, the driver was charged on 2 counts of vehicular manslaughter. Official investigations, as was the case with Joshua Brown's death, sometimes find that the blame is split between Tesla's onboard system and the driver. Sometimes Tesla is exonerated of any fault. And sometimes there is a very grey area caused by a lack of data, missing footage or onboard telematics, or conflicting information. In fact, in the case of the incident involving Joshua Brown, the first person to die in a collision involving a semi-autonomous highway-capable vehicle, there was some initial confusion over if he was distracted by a movie playing on a portable screen in the car. But later investigations by federal agencies did not corroborate that claim and ruled that there were multiple causes of the crash. But this week, just one day before jury selection for a civil wrongful death trial filed against Tesla by the family of Walter Huang, a 38-year-old Apple engineer who died after his Tesla Model X crashed while autopilot was active, Tesla has settled out of court. And today I'm going to discuss the settlement, discuss semi-autonomous driving, and ask what Tesla's settlement means for the company, its reputation, and the future of semi-autonomous and fully autonomous driving. In preparing today's video, I've done my best to dig through as much data as possible surrounding the various incidents that have involved Tesla and claims of autonomous or semi-autonomous involvement at the time of the incident. I've watched footage from Tesla Autopilot FSD beta testers and footage from people who have been using the just released version 12 Tesla full self-driving supervised. I'm also going to draw on my own time behind the wheel of Teslas and other vehicles equipped with some form of advanced Level 2 driver assistance features beyond the standard lane keep assist and radar-assisted cruise control that most automakers now offer on their vehicles as standard. I also want to acknowledge that Tesla isn't the only automaker where semi-autonomous features have been investigated because of fatalities. Just a few weeks ago, NHTSA and the NTSB opened a preliminary investigation into a fatality involving Ford's Blue Cruise, and I'm aware of other non-fatalities and fatalities involving other semi- and fully autonomous vehicles, both consumer-owned and fleet-operated. In other words, this isn't just a Tesla problem, but an autonomous vehicle problem, one which will require automakers and legislators to work together to solve, setting out a framework that allows for appropriate training and uniformity of operation. That said, it's almost uniquely Tesla that leans into advertising a language which has been found on multiple occasions in multiple places around the world to be misleading to customers. And that, I think, brings us to this particular court case. I'm going to be discussing the details of the crash in question though, so if you're watching with vulnerable viewers, you may want to consider skipping the next minute or so of this video, and I'm going to give you a few moments to do that. There should be a timestamp in the chapters below for you to skip this chapter and move forwards. My summary of events is based upon the official NTSB investigation into the collision, which I will also link to below. To be 100% clear, I am paraphrasing what happened. On March 23rd, 2018, a 2017 Tesla Model X P100D being driven by Walter Huang was in the second-most left lane of a 6-lane section of US Highway 101 southbound in Mountain View, Santa Clara, California. Shortly after entering into an area where the leftmost lane became the off-ramp for the southbound State Route 85, Walter Huang's Model X, operating with Autopilot Auto Steer and traffic-aware cruise control active, steered left and entered into what is known as a, quote, paved gore area, hitting a non-operational crash barrier at a speed of approximately 71 miles per hour, having previously sped up from a speed of 62 miles per hour a few seconds earlier. His hands were not detected on the steering wheel in the 6 seconds prior to the collision, and during the final minute of travel prior to the collision, his hands were detected on the wheel a total of 3 times for a duration of 34 seconds. The Model X spun from the force of the impact, split in 2 and collided with 2 other vehicles, a Mazda 3 and Audi A4. Despite splitting in 2 along the A-pillar, first people on the scene found Walter Huang still sitting in the driver's seat, his seatbelt intact and buckled. He was rescued from the vehicle before its battery pack caught fire and was rushed to the hospital, but sadly died of blunt force trauma injuries shortly thereafter. investigators from the NTSB, investigating the accident and examining findings from similar collisions that had previously taken place, found that, quote, the driver's lack of response due to distraction likely from a cell phone game application and over-reliance on the Autopilot partial driving automation system, end quote, added, quote, contributing to the crash was Tesla's vehicle ineffective monitoring of driver engagement, which facilitated the driver's complacency and inattentiveness, end quote. Examining telephone data, it also concluded that his cell phone data usage was, quote, consistent, end quote, with an online game activity around the time of the incident. The NTSB reported that the impact forces were so extreme because the Model X hit a crash barrier that had already been involved in a prior collision and therefore was non-operational and could not effectively absorb the impact energy it was designed to. It heavily criticised the California Department of Transportation's Maintenance Division for not quickly replacing the previously damaged barrier in a timely fashion following its original deployment. The NTSB also confirmed that a few days earlier, the very same car, being driven along the same route by the same driver, made the same sudden movement at the exact same point. In that particular instant, the car's onboard computer system detected that Huang had his hands on the steering wheel and responded to the sudden change of direction with a, quote, corrective steering movement, end quote. In an official post on its website, Tesla relayed its sympathies to the family and pointed out that Walter Huang had received, quote, several visual and one audible hands-on warning earlier in the drive, end quote, something that matches NTSB's findings on the accident. Tesla pointed out that he did not react prior to the collision, despite having 5 seconds and 150 meters to do so, based on the expected unobstructed view that he should have had from the driver's seat. Tesla also blamed the pre-deployed crash attenuation barrier for the severity of the collision and relayed some of its in-house statistics on collisions. I'm not going to discuss Tesla's statistics here because it's not the appropriate place to do so, and this video is already quite information dense. However, Kate has made a video on autonomous driving statistics and how Tesla's information about crash statistics isn't as clear-cut as you might expect. We'll link to it below. The Huang family's civil case, which it filed in April 2019 against both Tesla and the State of California's Highway Patrol, Department of Transportation, and Transportation Commission, alleged that Tesla was, quote, negligent and careless in failing and omitting to provide adequate instructions and warnings to protect against injuries occurring as a result of vehicle manufacturing and the absence of an effective automotive emergency braking system, end quote. It sought a jury trial alleging negligence and wrongful death against Tesla and Elon Musk, alongside some other charges against both Tesla, Elon Musk, and the Californian state agencies I've previously listed. It alleged the technology of Autopilot was promoted in egregious ways that caused owners to believe their vehicles were more capable than they were. The sudden news of the settlement just one day this week before the jury was due to be seated isn't in of itself unusual, though. It is fairly common for all kinds of corporate defendants to settle out of court before a case goes to trial, especially in the case of high-profile civil cases. The court has noted that the settlement has taken place and that the civil trial will not proceed. As is also often the case with large out-of-court settlements, Tesla has filed a request with the court to keep the details of the settlement private. Given that Tesla has gone to court multiple times in the past over similar cases, and has fought those allegations and won by claiming drivers misused its autopilot technology, This particular case is subtly different, as it didn't necessarily go after Tesla's Autopilot, but rather alleged that Tesla knew the system was defective. Additionally, the legal team for the plaintiffs also cited testimonies it obtained from Tesla engineers into exactly how much, or in this case, how alleged little, Tesla's Autopilot system at the time monitored driver attentiveness. Those same testimonies, obtained through the discovery process, also seem to suggest that Tesla was aware its system could easily be abused by drivers. Not helping Tesla's case were several statements highlighted by the plaintiff's legal team that were previously made by Elon Musk and by proxy Tesla. Statements which Tesla's team later tried for a while to suggest might have indeed been deep fakes. Given all of the above, the circumstances of the collision, the NTSB report into it, and the strange claims of deep fakes, it makes a lot of sense that Tesla chose to settle this out of court. After all, even if Tesla had fought and won, it was certainly possible, although not a certainty, that by some of the discovery obtained by plaintiffs, we would have seen an impact on Tesla's current sales push. That, as those who have watched our news roundup this week will know, is Tesla's rebranding of FSD Beta into FSD Supervised, and Elon Musk's desire that every new Tesla owner be taken on a drive by a Tesla member of staff to demonstrate FSD before those keys are handed over. That sales push is combined with 1 month of complimentary FSD Supervised for every FSD-capable Tesla on the road. Since Tesla's delivery and production figures for the last quarter failed to meet Wall Street expectations, and its current share price is entering April with a similar value to April last year, Tesla is looking at FSD as a serious moneymaker for the brand. And, as some of you pointed out, at the tail end of last week, Elon Musk announced that Tesla will be unveiling its first ever robotaxi on August 8th this year. But, as some of you also noted, Elon Musk chose, instead of using his standard for him nomenclature of using the month as a word and then the number as a number, to instead use 2 numbers in shorthand that is, depending on how you view it, either a brand new way of writing numbers in tweets for him or, as much of the more despicable part of the internet seem eager to joyously revel in, a dog whistle to something far more insidious that has its roots in white nationalism. I personally choose to hope that it is the former, although, given how Elon Musk's been behaving of late, I am fearful it may be the latter. With all of that, and please don't shoot the metaphorical messenger here, it makes sense that Tesla chose to settle out of court. As I previously noted, plenty of large corporations do it, as it's a fantastic way of avoiding negative press while also dealing with the problem. I don't know if we'll ever know exactly how much this particular settlement was, but I am guessing that when Tesla publishes its second quarter financials sometime this summer, we might be able to infer from numbers on a page approximate figures of the settlement. Now, to those broader questions. Does it constitute a tacit admittance from Tesla that it was at fault? In a word, no. One of the reasons for settling out of court like this is that it doesn't result in a guilty verdict, or indeed an acquittal. If there is no trial, then there's no possibility of a verdict. And Tesla is certainly not the first automaker to take this particular path out of a potential liability nightmare. That said, I think it's also worth noting, since I was the journalist Elon became angry at nearly a decade ago, Tesla is most certainly not interested, at the current time at least, in indemnifying drivers and passengers from things that happen when Tesla's software is doing the driving. For those unaware, Back in 2016, after asking a question on a Tesla press call about the possibility of Tesla offering indemnity to customers in the event of a collision involving Autopilot in a way similar to Volvo, which had just pledged to do exactly that with its own semi-autonomous driver assistance technology, Elon Musk said to me in response, quote, "If in writing some article that's negative, you effectively dissuade people from using autonomous vehicles, you're killing people. Next question," end quote. I wasn't invited back to a Tesla event or on a press call after that point. In addition to not being an admission of guilt, Tesla has sidestepped any potential implications of a guilty verdict, which may have resulted in increased scrutiny from regulators and legislators at local, national, and international levels, as well as potential restrictions on the sale or operation of FSD as a future software unlock or usable feature. We have already seen multiple attempts by both investors and customers to take both Elon Musk and Tesla to task over promising FSD rollout on timescales that have consistently proven impossible to achieve. And there are people out there today with Teslas who paid upfront a long time ago for software that they are only just gaining access to, and even then, not at a level of functionality they may have anticipated when they purchased their new car. Worse still for Tesla, other automakers are playing catch-up, with different automakers offering varied levels of success at what their autonomous and semi-autonomous systems offer. There are now multiple vehicles on the market with true hands-off, eyes-up semi-autonomous driving, and in the case of Mercedes-Benz and BMW in select markets across Europe and occasionally North America, Level 3 hands-off, eyes-off operational mode for congested low-speed traffic on select roads. At this point, I need to point out that I would be incredibly unfair and would be in fact very disingenuous if I were to suggest that Tesla is the only company having problems with its autonomous and semi-autonomous vehicle programs. Several other firms, including Ford and General Motors, are facing scrutiny and possible legal action for their own semi-autonomous vehicle features. In the case of Ford, it's due to a recent fatal collision in which a Mustang Mach-E, operating in Blue Cruise mode, allegedly, hit another vehicle, killing that car's driver. In the case of General Motors, it's due to multiple high-publicity collisions involving vehicles operated by its autonomous vehicle subsidiary, Cruise. And these days, any time a vehicle operating at an advanced level of cruise control is involved in an incident, looking at the robot behind the wheel is, frankly, a common and expected part of the investigative process. I should also note that given that there are many more Teslas on the roads of the world compared to other electric car brands, in fact, in some countries, there are more Teslas than all of the other EV models combined, it is far more likely, statistically speaking, that you will hear or see a Tesla semi-autonomous vehicle involved in a collision before you see another brand involved, because there are just more Teslas. At the same time, however, we need to note that Tesla's sales strategy for self-driving assistance is problematic. I suspect that the recent edition of Supervised was an attempt, perhaps even in relation to this just settled case, to ensure that from a legal perspective, Tesla is better protected from similar actions in the future. And given that Tesla seems to lean into the potential of its self-driving capabilities far more than rival companies do, at least when it comes to sales, often with seemingly little work on educating drivers on what the software can and cannot do, I do feel something needs to be done industry-wide about the way automakers design and use semi-autonomous driver assistance software. As is often the case, it is about education. We all know by now that it's unusual, although not by any means representative of every automaker or dealership, that many non-Tesla dealerships have abysmally poor knowledge of electric vehicles and semi-autonomous driver assistance features. I have met plenty of people who purchased an EV and knew far more about it than the person selling it to them. I've met people whose dealerships did not tell them how to charge or how to go about finding charging, or how indeed to use various features of their new car. But I have also met plenty of Tesla customers in a similar boat, either because they took ownership of their car at a time when social interaction was limited because of COVID, or because they purchased their vehicle at a time where Tesla sales staff physically didn't have enough time to sit everyone down and to make sure they understood everything. It is still, unfortunately, happening. At least it is if the huge number of usually Tesla Model 3 and Model Y parked in front of level 2 charging stations at my local airport and not plugging in is anything to go by. Maybe they are just selfish folks, but again, I'd like to believe it's because they're running late for an airport flight and don't know or understand why their Tesla won't charge from a J1772 level 2 charging station and either don't have the time or the energy to sort it out before their flight leaves. Moving forward, as I've noted before, I think we need to see auto industry professionals, including Tesla, work together to standardize the operation of and language surrounding level 2 and higher autonomous vehicle systems. We need to see safety organisations like NHTSA, the IIHS, and Euro NCAP, to name just a few, devise and test vehicles that promise some level of autonomy above the standard of lane keep assist and autonomous braking. And we need automakers to work with those test organisations to ensure that test facilities are properly mapped and programmed to work with those systems, just as if the cars were on a regular highway. Because right now, with the exception of Tesla's Autopilot and perhaps AI and its derivatives, most semi-autonomous driver assistance features won't work on a closed test track that's not part of a public highway system. I also think we need driver education programs to explain to people how these systems work and to examine people's driver ability based on proper use of that technology. In the UK, for example, the driving test has grown over the years to account for things like appropriate use of satellite navigation systems. So why not semi-autonomous systems? Given that most people barely know what half the menu items on their car's touchscreen display do, I think much more education and far stricter rules is the only way to a safer, more homogeneous adaptation of autonomous vehicle tech. Personally, I do not like Tesla's autopilot system operation. I don't like how touching the steering wheel can easily disengage the system completely. You can't adjust the path of the vehicle without disengaging autopilot. I find that the system phantom brakes far more regularly than the other systems I've used. And it's not always clear to me when it's operating and when it's not. Again though, to be 100% fair to Tesla, I've also experienced glitches with absolutely every other semi-autonomous system I've used, and I treat those systems like a tool rather than a chauffeur. But, unlike the majority of uninformed buyers, I am an industry professional who has had this stuff drummed into me for years. I'm also a nerd, and I know computers are only as good as the people who use them. At the end of the day, then, all semi-autonomous systems need to improve when it comes to communication. And if this court settlement helps that happen, I'm all for it. So, what about you? Leave your thoughts in the down below.